In 1988, a Japanese engine company walked into Formula One and built the most dominant car the sport has ever seen. 15 wins out of 16 races, 97% of all laps led. A season so crushing that McLaren scored almost as many points as every other team on the grid combined. But here is the part nobody talks about. The car was a McLaren. The engine was pure Honda. These are 10 insane facts about the McLaren MP4 that prove Honda owned Formula One. Number 10. Honda built an entirely new engine when everyone else gave up. 1988 was the final year turbocharged engines were allowed in Formula One. Every other team treated it as a throwaway season and focused on building cars for the new, naturally aspirated rules coming in 1989. Honda did the opposite. While rivals recycled last year's engines, Honda designed the RA168E from scratch. They built a completely new 1.5-litre twin turbo V6, specifically for the tighter regulations. The boost limit had been slashed from 4 bar to 2.5 bar. The fuel tank had been cut from 195 litres to 150 litres. Honda's engineers looked at those restrictions and saw an opportunity, not a death sentence. They raised the compression ratio to 9.4 to 1, redesigned the combustion chambers, and created an engine that made 685 horsepower while sipping fuel like it had nowhere to be. Number 9. The previous year's Honda engine made over 1,000 horsepower. To understand how radical the RA168E was, you need to know what came before it. In 1987, Honda's RA167E produced over 1,000 horsepower in race trim. During qualifying, when boost was cranked to the limit, these engines could hit 1,400 horsepower from just 1.5 litres. That is nearly 1,000 horsepower per litre. The engines were so violent they sometimes destroyed themselves after a single qualifying lap. The RA168E produced less than half of that qualifying power. But Honda's engineers had figured out something their rivals had not. Raw horsepower did not matter anymore. Fuel efficiency did, and nobody on the grid could touch Honda when it came to making power from less fuel. Number 8. The car was so low the drivers had to lie almost flat. McLaren designer Steve Nichols, working alongside Gordon Murray, who had joined from Brabham, created a car that sat lower than anything else on the grid. The MP4 was so slim and so low to the ground that Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost could not sit upright. They drove in a reclined position, almost lying down with their feet pushed forward. Formula One safety rules at the time required the top of the driver's helmet to sit below an imaginary line from the roll bar to the front cowling. The MP4 was so aggressively low that the only way to meet that rule was to lay the driver back like a fighter pilot. It looked uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable, but the reduced frontal area gave the car devastating aerodynamic efficiency that nothing else could match. Number 7. Alain Prost told Ron Dennis the car would win the championship after just a few laps. When Prost first drove the MP4 during a brief pre-season test at Imola, he reportedly climbed out of the car and told McLaren team boss Ron Dennis that this car would win the World Championship. The team had barely tested it. There had been almost no pre-season running, but Prost, a double world champion by that point, could feel it immediately. He was right. At the first race in Brazil, Ayrton Senna put the car on pole position by half a second, despite the lack of preparation. The car arrived essentially untouched, and it dominated from the very first weekend. Number 6. Lotus had the exact same Honda engine and got destroyed. Here is where the Honda advantage becomes undeniable. Lotus ran the identical RA168E engine in their car for 1988. Same specifications, same Honda engineering. At the San Marino Grand Prix, the second race of the season, defending world champion Nelson Piquet qualified his Lotus Honda in 3rd place. His qualifying time was 3.35 seconds slower than Senna. Over 5 kilometers, more than 3 seconds is an eternity in Formula One. The Lotus actually recorded higher top speed figures than the McLaren on the straights, but everywhere else on the circuit, the MP4 pulled away. During the race, both McLarens lapped the entire field, including Piquet in third. Same engine, same Honda power, and still the gap was enormous. The difference was the car Honda helped build around it. Number 5. Honda's engine ran at full power for nearly 2/3 of every race, and still never ran out of fuel. At Imola in 1988, Prost's i168e operated at maximum throttle for 63.6% of the race distance. In a season where fuel efficiency was supposed to cripple the turbo cars, Honda's engine could run flat out for most of the race and still make it to the finish. The specific fuel consumption of the RA168E was so efficient that Honda's drivers never had to back off or reduce boost to save fuel during a race. It is a stunning example of fuel efficiency. Every other turbo-powered team faced that dilemma. Honda simply solved the problem. The data on this channel shows that over 80% of you watching right now are not subscribed. That means you are showing up for the content, but the algorithm has no reason to show you the next video. If you have made it this far, you clearly care about Japanese engineering and motorsport. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. We still have 5 more facts to go, and the best ones are coming. Number 4. The 1988 season included 10 races where McLaren Honda finished first and second. They locked out the top 2 positions in 10 of 16 races. They took pole position in 15 of 16 races. Senna alone took 13 poles, a record at the time. The team scored 199 points in the Constructors' Championship. Second place Ferrari managed 65 points. McLaren scored more than 3 times what their closest rival could manage. A panel of Formula One engineers and designers later voted the MP4 the greatest Formula One car of all time. Number 3. The only race they lost was a ghost story. At the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, Enzo Ferrari had died just 4 weeks earlier. The Tifosi were desperate for a Ferrari victory to honor the old man. Prost retired with a rare engine failure, the only race-ending engine problem the MP4 suffered all season. Senna was leading comfortably with 2 laps remaining when he came up to lap Jean-Louis Schlesser, a driver making his first and only Formula One start as a substitute in a Williams. The two collided at the first chicane. Senna was out. Ferrari's Gerhard Berger won the race, and the Monza crowd erupted. It was the only time all season that a non-McLaren stood on the top step. Some people say Enzo reached down and took that one back. Number 2. Senna won the championship at Suzuka after stalling on the grid. The title was decided at the Japanese Grand Prix at Honda's home circuit, Suzuka. Senna started on pole but stalled his engine at the start. He was saved by one detail. Suzuka had the only sloping grid in Formula One that year, and the car rolled forward just enough for him to bump start the engine. He dropped to 14th. By the end of the first lap, he was 8th. By lap 4, he was 4th. Rain began to fall on lap 14, and Senna, the greatest wet weather driver who ever lived, started hunting down Prost. By lap 24, he was on Prost's tail. When Prost got held up lapping a back marker, Senna went past and pulled away. He won by 13 seconds. Senna's first world championship was clinched at Honda's home circuit, in front of Honda's own fans. Number 1. The only car that ever broke Honda's MP4 record was also powered by Honda. For 35 years, the MP4's 15 wins from 16 races stood as the most dominant single season in Formula One history. Nobody could touch it. Then, in 2023, the Red Bull RB19 won 21 out of 22 races, a 95.45% win rate that finally surpassed the MP4's 93.8%. The engine inside the RB19 was a Honda V6 turbo hybrid. Honda broke Honda's own record. At the 2023 Hungarian Grand Prix, Red Bull won their 12th consecutive race, breaking the consecutive wins record that McLaren Honda had set in 1988. Between 1986 and 1991, Honda engines powered 6 consecutive Constructors' Championships across 2 different teams, 2 with Williams, 4 with McLaren. Then they left, came back, struggled, left again, came back again and shattered their own record with Red Bull. The MP4 is the car that started that legacy, and 35 years later, Honda proved it was no fluke. If you want to see how Honda first arrived in Formula One with an engine their own engineers did not know how to build, subscribe. We will see you in the next one.